Maren is back with us, and we're talking about a Scientology concept called postulates, and it's not exclusive to Scientology, and we go into that at the beginning of the video. But then we go into when she actually left the Church of Scientology in 1982 and hooked up with David Mayo at the Advanced Ability Center, and also with her then future husband, Frankie Freedman. And we go into that story as well. I think you're going to find this video very entertaining and hopefully informative. Stay tuned for Maren. Again, everybody, welcome to our channel, Scientology Peeling the Onion. My name is Mark Fisher, and I'm here with my co-host, Janis Gillham Grady. How you doing today, Janis?
I'm doing good, Mark. How are you? Oh, good day, everybody.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Everything's going good. You're getting ready to, have two grandbabies pretty soon. And I know by the time people see this, that may have already happened. But still, I'm sure you're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Yeah, and we'll share photos and stuff when you get back, because we'll do some shows and stuff on that too. So yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, go ahead. We've got our returning guest, Maren Freedman, is here again, and we're going to continue with her story, and we're going to talk about a Scientology concept called postulates and postulating, which is something that she's used before. And we're just going to explain people what that means in Scientology. Hello, Maren. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're having fun with your interviews.
Oh, yeah, they're so fun. And I've been getting feedback from people who are really enjoying the interviews.
Good. Well, you know what? I postulate that we have more great interviews with Mary.
I co-postulate that.
Okay.
Well, before we get back into Mary's story, we're going to talk about the Scientology concept that L. Ron Hubbard came up where he mentioned, called postulates or postulating. And it's different than like a postulate in science or that type of thing. I've got a simple sort of definition here of what he's talking about when he's talking about postulates. And then Mary, you can explain as well from your experience. Anyway, a postulate, it's a self-created decision that brings about an effect. More fully explained by L. Ron Hubbard, a postulate is a decision or conclusion made by a being, a spiritual being, without force, effort, or time that causes something to happen. And that's basically what he's talking about there. It's basically a decision with full intention, but without any attachment to it, so that it actually gets created in the universe, in the physical universe. Is that all around what we're talking about here, Mary?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, postulates are very powerful. I talked about my postulate when I was finished with my upper levels up at the advanced organization in Scotland. And I had done everything on the bridge. There was nothing above. My head was, smashed up on the ceiling. So I went to Qual and I said, I need my next level of training. And that was a postulate. It was just completely without reservation. It was just a decision and a definite statement of what I had to do. And by that night, the postulate came true, and I got the call to go to the ship for the Class A course. So when you make a clean decision that has no effort on it or anything countering it, it's just a clean idea of something you intention without reservation. I would say intention without reservation is a great way to describe it.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not exclusive to Scientology. I mean, there are people who teach about affirmations, or writing down goals that you want to achieve and reading them before you go to bed each night until they become achieved, that type of thing. And after leaving Scientology, my dad, who had left Scientology, he had me read this book here by Deepak Chopra, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And in that, he talks about, it's more of a Buddhist background, that type of thing, but about basically meditating, making your mind still and then putting in whatever it is that you're trying to achieve into your mind, and then taking any attachment off of it. And then more recently, there was also the law of attraction. There was a book that came out 10 years ago or so about the law of attraction. It's the same thing where you're basically putting out into the universe things that you want to achieve or that you want to have happen to you without any attachment to it. And then just let the universe handle the details is what they're talking about here. And Janis, you had that, you talked about, when you were starting up your own mortgage business by yourself, right?
Yeah, I was fed up with working with Paul and the people he had hired. And I was like, I'm out of here. I'm going to set up my own mortgage company. And it was scary. It was a scary feeling going out in the big world on your own in business. And every day driving in, I went out and I found a location. That was simple. So every day driving into that location, I was like telling myself, I can do this. And I just keep the whole way to the office, to go paint and put new carpet down and get it all set up and hire loan officers. I just keep telling myself, I can do this. And if mentally I would try and come up with stops, I said, no, I can do this. And I just keep that positive thought going, because my postulate was that I'd have a thriving business. And I ended up bailing the other company out financially because I did so well. And
That's right.
I believe, it's like believing in yourself and that you can make those achievements. To me, that's a postulate. That's what my mother used to have us do when we were kids. Let's postulate this will happen. Let's postulate that will happen. And so that's how I always operated, was postulating for something right to happen.
Yes, that's how it works.
Yeah.
Another example of a postulate is when people write down. I tell people to write down their intention or their goal, what they want.
Yes.
And if you write it down even with some details, doesn't have to be nitpicky, but it, kind of like the general, how it would look to you if you had that, and you focus on that. I did that with this house that I'm in. I'm in a beautiful house. I love it here. All the things that I wanted in a house, including the view. I wrote it all down on a piece of paper years ago, before we even found this house. Before we even thought about moving here. And sure enough, after we moved here, I found that piece of paper, which I forgot about, and everything on there was in this house.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, to go along with that same thing, Mary, I over the years have had, decided to write down things that I wanted to achieve. I called it my happy list. And what I would do is I basically would go through and look forward on my life from where I'm at now to where I want to go. And I worked out what would make me happy. In other words, what were the things that I wanted to achieve? And it didn't matter what it was. I would just write them down on the list. You know what I mean? And just have them on there. And I'd think about, whatever, physically or money wise or family wise or whatever, and just write down these things. And then just like you said, they would just, when they would happen, I'd write done on them or finished, and after I go back to look a year later to see what got done, and 90% of them would be all completed, you know what I mean? For just because I had my attention on it and I was able to make those things happen.
Yes,
it's very powerful. I also think that prayer in a sense is a form of postulation.
Yes, I was going to say that too. Yeah.
Yes.
No, absolutely.
Because you're visualizing what you want, and you're asking for the highest level of cause or God or divinity to give you that power and that love and the beauty of it. And it's a very high wavelength to be on. And the higher the wavelength that you're on, the higher the vibe, the higher the frequency, the more power it has.
Yeah, it's like getting in communication with the life force that's out there. Do you know what I mean? There is a spiritual life force out there, I believe, and you're basically connect with that and basically channel into that to have it help you achieve what you want to achieve,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's
Good.
that's the concept of postulates. Like I said, it's not exclusive to Scientology, but we wanted to give you an idea of what we're talking about whenever Mary mentions I postulated this or a postulate. That's what Scientologists are talking about. So we're going to carry on with your story here now, Mary.
And I ended up in New York again, working at Helen Geltman's center. Frank Geltman had passed away. We went through that horrendous thing where they had the Black Monday in San Francisco, where they had the mission holders meeting, and they were declaring people.
Oh, we didn't talk about that. Were you
No.
at that or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't
Okay.
there, but Helen went. It was a
Okay.
terrible experience, a nightmare for her, that the mission holders were all gathered in this big assembly in San Francisco. And I guess, I don't know if Miscavige was already in power at that point.
Yes.
Yes, he was there
Yes.
behind the
Yeah,
scenes.
he
He
was
was
there.
behind the scenes. Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
let me say something about this, and that is Hubbard was also involved in this. And I know when I heard that what was happening to the mission holders, I felt that Miscavige, who was reporting up to Hubbard, was either embellishing what was going on, exaggerating, whatever, but it was not the truth. And Hubbard was reacting off of what Miscavige was telling him, and then and Hubbard came out with sending the finance police, so the finance police were created, and they just invaded the missions and took all their money and declared everyone for this and that. And Kingsley Wimbush had his de-dinging going on, which was considered squirrel, and just all of them got pulled into one big pot and boiled.
Yeah, and to add to that, it fed into what Hubbard, the line that Miscavige was feeding him was that these mission holders, which were huge, they were driving a lot of people into Scientology. They were the successful feeder line into the organizations, right? And this is in 1981, 82. All of a sudden, they're ripping us off. They're taking all the money. They're not sending people to the organizations, and they're holding on to their public, and they're basically ripping off L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology. That was the viewpoint that was pushed, right? Plus also the fact that like you mentioned, that Janis, they're squirreling with this de-dinging tech and this type of thing. And simultaneously, Watchdog Committee had come into existence at that point, and all these mission holders, they didn't know nobody knew who Watchdog Committee was, and so they had legitimate questions as to, well, who's running things? Where's Hubbard? We haven't heard from him. So they were concerned about that as well from the mission holders' point of view.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, well, Helen was at this meeting, and I didn't know what was going on there, but I was there working at the mission, and when she came back, she was absolutely caved in, totally, worse than when Frank died. And I was her auditor, and I had to run stuff off of her her upset in session and get her back into normal everyday life at the mission, which was very difficult because the finance police were threatening to come to the mission and take all the money. I don't remember if I told you about when the finance police were coming to the mission, and they didn't know what to do with me, so they sent me to LA, and they wouldn't give me. I think I told you they wouldn't give me the Key to Life course because they didn't have phones.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah.
So I went away from there. I went back to California. Then I came back again, and then things started to go downhill because the mission was pushed down and suppressed by the finance police, and Helen was not happy. It was a very stressful time, and they were accusing us, like you said, of keeping the public there and making clears or something like that, which really we weren't running them on the upper levels, but they were accusing us of doing that and withholding public from flag.
Right.
And stealing auditors.
Yeah.
They were accused of stealing auditors from the audit.
Right.
And stealing staff too. They were accused of stealing staff.
Yeah. And then they were there, and they were on their way. They weren't there yet. And I was upset about them coming back again, and I was calling them, and they did arrive at the mission, and I was calling them Nazis and Gestapos, and they didn't like that for some reason, but they were. Yeah, they were. And then they put me in a low condition, and I had to scrub the floors at the org and do stuff to get back in good standing. And the staff at Geltman's wanted me to handle the whole ethics thing, that I was in trouble because of being Mary the Mouth. And they were saying, just do what they want you to do and come back. But it turned out that they wanted me to turn in my friends who were saying bad things about upper management and who were connected to people that were in bad standing, that had been declared SP, suppressive person. And I was still friends with these people because I knew they weren't SPs. They just got into some kind of trouble. And I was having dinner with people and I was friends with people. And they didn't like that. And they accused me that I was, hanging out with people that were against Scientology, and I wasn't. But anyway, if anybody was against Scientology in those days, it was them. So I would not turn in my friends. I would not play that game of getting people into trouble and messing up their lives by reporting on them. I refused, and they were saying there's no such thing as freedom of speech in the Church of Scientology, and people can't just talk about upper management and insult us and whatever. And I said, well, and he said, they're suppressive and you're going to be declared, we'll comment you. And I said, well, you do what you have to do and I'll do what I have to do. And I resigned. I resoundingly resigned, and I sent 40 letters. Okay. When the Church of Scientology decides to follow the codes and the basic principles of the Church of L. Ron Hubbard, because then I'll consider giving it my support, because they're not capable of carrying forward the technology of Scientology. They are not doing it. They are pushing it down and suppressing it. So when they decide to follow it, I will consider giving it my support, but I hereby resign. So nobody ever forced me out. I just left. And it was a huge event. I mean, Maren left the Church of Scientology. She resigned. I mean, it went all over the place. And as a result of that, weeks later, I was still in my apartment in Manhattan, and I was auditing a couple of people outside the church, and I got a phone call, and it was Frankie. Frankie called me, and he
Frankie
said,
Freedman, right?
Yeah. He said, this is Frankie. I said, Frankie, wow, that's great. I'm glad you called me. He said, I hear you left the church. I said, yeah. He says, listen, remember when we used to sit in the CS office in LA and AOLA, and I was CSing and you were sitting there and we were chatting? He says, remember that day that we went exterior together and we had this very high kind of experience out there wherever we were? I said, yes. He said, let's do that again. And then I said, okay. I thought that was really interesting that he said that. And then he decided to come to see me in Manhattan. And he came over and we went to dinner and we walked through Central Park and we spent hours and hours and hours together. And then he said he was going to go and work. He wanted to go and work with David Mayo because David Mayo had already been booted out of the church. And I did too. I had called various people and I had spoken to David Mayo and actually went to see him. I took a trip from New York prior to Frankie coming. I traveled from New York on an airplane to California. I had friends there, and I went to visit a friend of mine who was a class 9 in LA, and we drove up to David Mayo in Santa Barbara, and I talked to him in person, and I asked him if he was delivering standard tech at this new advanced ability center that he didn't even have yet. It was just in his house up there. And he said yes, and he invited me to audit it, to get a job there and work with him as an auditor. And I said, yes, I will do that. So I went back to New York. And then when Frankie came over, he told me he was going to go there. And I said, well, I am too. So we drove from New York to LA and Santa Barbara. And I had 2 kitty cats that time. They flew and we drove. So we.
Frankie left the Sea Organization around that same time period. Is that right? Because he had been in the Sea Org at Flag for quite some time.
Yeah, he was QualSec FSO, and then he was QualSec Flag Service Org, which was the org that delivered the services to the public.
Right.
And then he was Commodore's messenger, and
Right.
he was hanging around at Flag in his white uniform, and he just looked beautiful. And I never saw him like that in a full-blown white uniform. But anyway, he was doing well, and then he was Diana Hubbard's auditor, and he was working for David Mayo previously when David was the CS for that org at Flag. And then David went off from there and went to audit LRH because he was sick somewhere in the Caribbean.
In La Quinta. In La Quinta.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. He went to help him, and then he helped him. He audited him, and he developed the NOTS materials as a way to help LRH. And then LRH, of course, endorsed that because it saved him. And then it became a delivery service at Flag. Decided it should be a big money maker as a OT level. So he made OT 5, which was the delivery of it, and that OT 6, which was studying it and how to do it on yourself solo, and then OT 7, which turned into a solo action, and that had very, very bad statistics, and people were getting sick and dying. That was very bad. It was overrun years, like 10 years. People were on that level.
They're on OT6 doing solo net for OTs, but LRH
OT7.
was very much, OT7. LRH was very much involved with David Mayo on the development of knots. And then he sent the mission. It was Neville Potter and Scott Stratman on the mission to Flag to implement and get all the class 9s trained to deliver it. LRH was very much involved in that. And then, but, David Mayo told me about a year before he passed away, he came and stayed with me. And he told me that the auditing he was doing on Hubbard was not NED for OTs. It was different. And so he was surprised when Hubbard came up with NED for OTs and then started talking to him about it. And then David's the one who wrote it all up and put it in policy letter. And Melanie Murray was the tech messenger involved, and she would relay messages between Hubbard and David with message runs on what to correct on the different things that processes that David had written up. But so that was the history on that.
Yeah.
It started in late 78 when Hubbard got sick.
Right.
Because I was on the RPF at the time, and I remember Kimmer coming over and seeing me over at the RPF, and she had a EKG machine that she got to take readings on Hubbard and his heart. And then she told me David had arrived and was processing Hubbard. And then later on, when we were in Hemet, David was right there at the Hemet Apartments at X with LRH, going over more development and so forth.
Yeah, I'm sure that was going on, of course.
Right.
What I remember was it was a rundown. People went to Flag 4, the NOTS
absolutely.
rundown.
Before
it became an OT level.
Well, it was,
that.
I guess so. Yeah.
You're right. You're right. It was called NED for OTs, and we still had the old OT levels at that time. But then he replaced the old OT levels with this and and changed the whole lineup from OT4 onwards.
Well, the old OT levels, I'm still a fan of those, but I think that the NED for OTs is very, very excellent, and it got great I got great wins from it, and other people did too, and I still use it.
Because when Net for
But not
OTs
football.
came out, when that came out, I was in the middle of doing my old OT levels up through 7.
Yeah, I don't CS people for knots or New Era Dianetics solo. I don't do that. I do it if they need some emergency. As a solo auditor, they could sit down and handle their rudiments or handle some restimulation if they need it, but not years and years of doing endless knots. I think that's detrimental, but it does have a use. It's a very powerful procedure.
Well, also, Mary, it's in the non-interference zone because of what it's dealing with. And here they are having people come in every 6 months for sec checks for a check-in. That was totally done as a moneymaker. I remember listening to these guys talking about it, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is non-interference zone. They didn't care. They did it anyway.
Well, okay, I don't know if non-interference zone changed, but if I recall it, when I knew about it, and don't forget, I left in 83, so things were changing after that, but it was between clear and OT3.
Right.
And
once you finished OT3, that you're out of the non-interference zone.
And NOx was above OT3.
Right.
So,
right, but it's addressing the same subject as OT3.
It's got lots of similarities of content. Yes.
I got up to solo knots. So I was auditing solo knots when I left Scientology in 1990. Janis, I think you were too, right? Were you up to solo knots or were you on audited knots?
I was being audited on solo knots. I didn't have time to do the solo course again because I was what my position was and everything. So they were just auditing me on knots.
So we know what you're talking about.
On the solo stuff,
we know what you're talking about. So you know.
Yeah, it's a great level. It covers everything. It's fantastic. Yeah. So I was a big fan of audited knots, not solo.
So Frankie left. Did he get kicked out or did he leave?
He got 2 friends of his. She was his friend previously, and so was this guy in Las Vegas, Eddie Walters.
I knew Eddie. Yeah, up until he died.
There were two Eddies. One of them came to Celebrity Center, and your mom, Yvonne, was friends with him. But that wasn't the Eddie Walters that I'm talking about. There was another one. And he was a dealer, and he was, And
he was the pit boss.
Frankie had been a dealer before he got in Scientology. He got in Scientology because he found out about it when he was working in Vegas. And he went straight to St. Hill. He had just a beeline to London and St. Hill to do the briefing course. But anyway, Eddie Walters.
There he is there on the briefing course.
Yeah, on the right, back right. Yeah.
Yeah, there he is. Wow. Okay.
And then here's a picture of him at St. Hill. It's hard to see, but that's him on the lawn in St. Hill.
Yeah. Anyway, what was I saying?
Eddie Walters.
Yeah, Eddie. He got to get Doran Green.
Yes.
He got together with her. Somehow they got together just to do a little project. And the project was, let's get Frankie out of the church. So they connived together, and they put together a letter to the church, to the GO or the OSA. And they said, the Church of Scientology is a criminal organization, and it better get its act together. If you don't believe me, ask Frankie Freedman. And that was their strategy. They never had that talk with Frankie. Frankie didn't know they were writing a letter. They were already declared and out. They just got together to get Frankie out.
Right.
And
well, did you know that Frank? Yeah. What? Go ahead. Sorry,
they
go ahead.
pointed the finger. They pointed the finger at him to get them to throw him out, and they did. It worked. No matter what he said, over and over, he said, I know nothing about this letter. I never had this conversation. I never said that. They did not believe him. They checked him. They put him through all kinds of interrogations. Committees of evidence. everything was there was no evidence other than this one letter, and they would not let him come back. They would not. And he waited and waited for a review ComEv for a couple of months in Clearwater, and they didn't do it. And they kept his belongings, which is, they stole his stuff. I mean, he had beautiful recording stuff and everything that he had. Music, he was great on music and the best kind of equipment for that. And they kept it all. And then finally he called his uncle in New Jersey, who had a business of an auction business. And Frankie said, I need a job. And he said, okay, come on up to New Jersey and I'll give you a job in my auction business. So he went up there, and then so that was in 82. And then in 83 was when I left, and I wrote my letter and I resigned. And then Frankie called me when he was still working and living with his uncle in New Jersey.
Okay.
Wow.
I wanted to mention Frankie was on the mission that purchased the Fort Harrison and the bank building, the Clearwater Bank building.
Yes.
And as Southern Land Development, he was on that mission that actually did the purchase and everything. Yeah. That's
right. He told me that Ron said, go to the Fort Harrison and tell me what you think.
Yeah.
If it's suitable. And he did, and he gave it a pass, and he went back to Ron and said, it'll work fine. So that's how they got the Fort Harrisons, because Frankie approved it.
Yeah, and Frankie did the mission to get it purchased, and LRH ran him on that mission. Yeah.
I had experience with Frankie when I was 21, 22 years old in Clearwater at the Fort Harrison. I was the LRH communicator for estates for the base or whatever. Frankie got busted. This is after he was married still to Frankie Freedman. He got busted. I don't remember why, but he got put into estates. And so we used to be stewards together in the Hourglass. We used to, because it was all hands to serve the public during lunch and dinner. And Abdel Rabaj was the maitre d', and so Frankie and I were in there with other people as well. But then he and I did a recruit mission for the Sea Org, and I'll never forget this. We came to Las Vegas as one of the places that we went to, and I had no idea of his background. But we got here to Las Vegas, and I'd never been before. And he goes, "Oh, come on, let's go. We'll go to this restaurant, over here, on Convention Center. It was an Italian restaurant called the Copa or whatever, and it's no longer there. But anyway, we walk in. And all the waiters and the maitres they all go, Frankie, how you doing? Haven't seen you. You know what I mean? Where you been? I mean, he was known everywhere that we went because he had been, like you said, a pit boss and a dealer and all that when he was in Scientology, before Scientology in Vegas. So I was totally blown away and impressed by that because people knew who he was. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he was very popular. Everybody loved Frankie.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Especially the women. And at Flag, when he was around Flag and he'd come in the lobby and we'd be talking and all these women would be there, I used to keep my distance from him because I didn't want to be in the lineup because, these women were all after him.
Oh, yeah.
But we were friends. We were very good friends before he came to me in New York and we got together. Yeah. And we were just right there from the get-go. We were together for over 35 years, 37 years. But anyway,
I have this picture here. I have this picture of the two of you, I think, right here. Right?
Yeah. When they got married in Hawaii.
Yes.
There you are right there, right?
Yes. There we are.
When was that? When did you guys get married?
87.
Okay.
We were together from 83, and then in 87 we got married in Hawaii. We were in Hawaii at our friend's house there on the Big Island. We got married.
Right.
Now, he did several missions for LRH. He was one of LRH's favorite missionaries. He had many commendations and approvals from LRH for doing a good job wherever he went.
Yeah.
And when I was this is going back a ways now in the 70s, when I had been obviously at St. Hill prior in the 60s, but then I went back in the early 70s because they had cheap auditing, like $35 an hour in St. Hill for auditing, where it was way more than that in LA, So me and a group of friends got on an airplane and flew to England and St. Hill to get auditing, just to do it. And I had some incomplete stuff that had never been handled from when I first got in, having to do with goals. It was a very big goals list that I had. And that had never been addressed. So I said, I would like to get my goals list sorted out and get correct this list. And they said, okay. So I got a bunch of auditing, and there were like 600 goals on the list, 600. Okay. And the item was not on the list. She was reading it. The auditor was reading it and reading it on and on and on and on. I'm going, no, that's not it. That's almost it, but it's not it. On and on and on. And finally, I said, it doesn't have the strength of it. It doesn't have the feeling of it, the vibe of this goal. And I finally blurted it out in my conversation. And I said it, and it had to do with coexistence. But anyway, I said this, and that blew up. The meter, the auditor, me, and the room, everything blew up. The whole universe blew up. It was like absolutely textbook. After 600 items, we got the right one, but it wasn't on the list. That's really funny and very unusual. This is not normal, but I've never been normal. But anyway, so that was it. I mean, I was done with my auditing. It was such a huge win. So then I said, well, I don't have anything to do, so give me some folders. I'll audit some of your public if you want me to. And they said, sure. So I was auditing at St. Hill once again. And then in East Grinstead, there was a group called Jazz Influence. And that was a bunch of musicians from worldwide. And Ron Miscavige, the senior, the father of David.
Right.
And Ron had organized this. He played the trumpet, I think. And he organized these musicians to play at a gig every weekend at this pub. So I would sort of go down there just for the fun of it. I love jazz, and I would sit there and listen. And then Ron Miscavige had to leave and go back to the States, and the musicians were just hanging out. And I talked to them. And one of them was Ron Moss, if you remember him. Ron
Sure.
Moss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he and I became friends, and we decided to do some songs together. And I was singing. I did a lot of singing because I used to be in the theater. So I was singing with the group. And then we decided to go get a job in town. And we went to another bigger pub in a big hotel in East Grinstead. And we got hired every Saturday night. And we were performing every Saturday night at this pub. And Herbie Parkhouse, once again, did not like this. I mean, these guys were all in trouble. They were being commented and put through all kinds of stress by Herbie to make them stop having moonlighting jobs. They had to only be in worldwide, and that was it. So they were constantly being hounded by him, but we still had our gig. And then
when was this? What years?
73.
Okay.
So then Ron and I got together and decided to do a Narconon benefit show at the Adeline Genet Theater in East Grinstead.
You're talking about Ron Moss. Yeah.
Yeah, Ron Moss, not
yeah,
Ron Hubbard. Yeah, Ron Moss.
No, or not Ron Miscavige.
Right.
Or not, it wasn't. Miscavige was gone by that time.
Yeah.
So Ron Moss and I decided to produce a concert for the general public of East Grinstead. And of course, St. Hill was invited. Everybody was invited. And we raised a whole bunch of money for Narconon as a benefit. And I did a bunch of shows. Cabaret had just come out in London. And I did a bunch of songs from Cabaret. And Ron and I were dancing. And he was in one dance, he was the gorilla. And I was singing the song, If You Could See Him Through My Eyes, blah, blah, blah. And I had to get special permission from one of the top officials, PR, David Gaiman.
David Gaiman.
Yeah. I had to get special permission to say, if you could see him through my eyes, you wouldn't think he was a Scientologist at all. I had to get special permission to do that. And then they loved it. They had such a good time. It made the papers in East Grinstead, everybody was talking about it. And it created a lot of ARC because people in East Grinstead thought that we were a bunch of weirdo wackos at St. Hill, that we would sit around and they would say that we were communing with the flowers, which had no basis of anything. But when they saw this concert, it totally raised the reality on who we were and what we were doing in a different way. And then
you were the Apollo stars of East Grinstead, right?
Well,
Janis?
that's why.
Yeah, exactly.
LRH started the Apollo Stars because of that show and our gig in East Grinstead, because we brought aesthetics out of St. Hill into the town and raised the tone level and the ARC with the people in East Grinstead. That's why he did it. And
It's he called it PR area control, public relations area control.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And we didn't think of it like that. We were just having a good time with the music. But then Frankie was sent on a mission from LRH to wipe out our ethics files, get rid of the ComEv, everything on them, on the musicians, and gave us the commendations for doing this. We were validated by Ron through Frankie for doing this whole project in East Grinstead. And that's what
great.
Started aesthetics on the Apollo.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, Ron Moss was the manager for Chick Corea and Return to Forever for many years.
Right. Yep.
And then his daughter is a famous actress, Elizabeth Moss, from The Handmaid's Tale and Mad Men and all that. So that's who Ron Moss was. He's no longer with us. He passed away.
No, that's right. He's no longer with us.
Yeah.
He gotten a whole bunch of stuff over at Flag. But anyway, we kept in communication to some degree after he left. And we had Chick Corea online at Helen Geltman's Mission when I was working there. And those guys were there. And it was good. I mean, they were doing well. And Ron was doing very well managing that group. So it came out pretty good.
So back to when you and Frankie drove across country and sent your cats on the airplane. You were going out to Santa Barbara to join up with David Mayo, and he had lots of people that were joining him, right?
Yes, but we stopped off to see Eddie Walters in Las Vegas on our way to California.
Oh, okay.
And Eddie did admit that he and Duran had conspired to get him out of the church at that point.
How did Frankie feel about that?
He just shrugged it off, Frankie.
You guys had just left. What did you think about L. Ron Hubbard? What did you think that he didn't know what was going on? I mean, did David Mayo fill you in on what was going on with Hubbard at the time? You know what I mean? Because he obviously had been kicked out too. And you still believed in the technology, right?
Yeah. The data that I had, which was very minimal, and all the guys who were in the CS1 and even the group, the one that you talked about earlier,
Exec Strata.
Yeah,
the executive strata.
But there was that
Watchdog Committee.
The what?
Watchdog Committee.
Yeah, Watchdog. That's it. Watchdog.
Oh, okay.
They were the ones that David was working with to open the Advanceability Center.
You're talking about John Nelson was there, right? John Nelson.
He was the ED.
And Dee Dee was there.
And Dee Dee
Alan Buchanan. Wasn't Alan Buchanan there too?
Yes, Alan Buchanan.
Yes, Alan was there.
And of course, Frankie knew all of them, but I didn't know any of them because I was never in the Sea Org.
I can understand how you would feel and how Frankie would feel like that. Because Janis, you and I had the same experience leaving in 1990. I mean, we all kind of got together, and then Jeff Walker left, and all these people came, and we were all declared suppressive people, but we were all like, "Hey, we're not bad people. Come on," you know what I mean? I know these people.
We had our own group here in Vegas.
Yeah, here in Vegas. Yeah.
Well, I am now announcing it again to everybody that was ever declared SP that was a wrong item. Wrong item. It's not your item.
Thank you. LFBD and floating needle.
Good. riles me up. But anyway,
So
so
when
we were all there, and I was the odd girl out because I didn't fit in with the Sea Org, and they wanted to do all these things that, like they had to cleaning stations, and I never heard of cleaning stations. I wasn't going to have a cleaning station, and I said, get a maid, and David, we had staff meetings. I said, get a maid. They couldn't because they didn't want any exposure of the confidential materials or something. I don't know. Nobody would have understood it anyway. But anyway, that's the way they were running it. It was kind of a little Sea Orgy, but it was okay.
That's all they knew. That's all they knew.
That's all they knew.
Yeah.
But I didn't know any of it. But we had a video, we had parties, we had fun. It was good. I remember we used to do shows way back in the beginning when I first came in. We used to do shows and skits and plays, and we had joking and degrading. We had all that stuff. It was just a fun riot of a time that we had back then. I played Lolita Latour with a diamond-studded E-meter, and we had skits like that. It was just hilarious. So we had fun also to some degree like that. Was a little more serious, but it was pretty good up at, we didn't do shows, but we had some good times. And David used to give at the Advanced Ability Center, the AAC, he used to give lectures every Sunday. Every Sunday he would give a lecture, and people would come all around, and there were my friends coming up there from LA, and a bunch of them were plants, they were there for, they were trying to spy on us.
Yeah,
Bob
and Cynthia Madoff.
Yeah, David made me the Skull Watcher, which I think Quentin Hubbard came up with that phrase on the ship, Skull Watcher. So I was sitting in a room with a meter, and these people from LA, and some of them were my friends, they would get on the cans, and I would look at the meter and I would ask them questions. And I wrote a bunch of questions out that I decided would be a giveaway on the meter, like the room number of the Bureau 1 or whatever at OSA or whatever it was called, the GO back then. Still, it was the GO.
Yeah.
OSA and the room number and the people there and the surround. And I would call these items off on the meter. And if they read, I would say, I'm sorry, but you're not eligible to take services here. And they said, why? I said, because you're a plant. You were sent here by the GO, and that's not the kind of public that we're going to be offering services to. So you can leave. Thank you for visiting, but bye-bye. And they were furious, absolutely furious. I said, go back and tell your mission ops that you have a failed mission. That's what you have.
And they were sending people in. I mean, David Mayo and the Advanced Ability Center was public enemy #1 as far as squirrels go. And our Religious Technology Center, Vicky Asnaran, Jesse Prince, and all that, their #1 goal was to put David Mayo out of business and hopefully behind bars. I mean, that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah. And then they started suing David in a big lawsuit. But Frankie and I, meanwhile, we weren't there during that initial time of the lawsuit. We were in South Africa because they flew us to South Africa because there were a whole bunch of people in South Africa, in Johannesburg, that wanted to leave the church. And they found out about David Mayo, and he was the #1 tech man on the planet, chosen, handpicked by L. Ron Hubbard to be the top tech person, top CS of the whole planet. And that was an insult to LRH that they would think that he would choose an SP as the top tech person of the planet. We thought that was really shooting. They shot themselves in the foot on that one. But anyway, so we went there, and there was a whole bunch of people that wanted to leave the church, but some of them were plants. They weren't really truly who they said they were. And we had,
just so our viewers know, a plant is a spy. That's the Scientology word for a spy. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, it's kind of a universal word too. But anyway, so there was a bunch of of materials that we had to bring with us that had to do with upper levels and all kinds of stuff so we could handle these people. And we sent them on a special route. We did not carry them on our person. So there was no way for any of these people to even have access to the materials. They were trying to get something, but they could get nothing. And we found a house, a very lovely little house in Johannesburg. And there was an interesting development there because we had somebody working in that house that came with the house. This was this was during apartheid. And we decided to upgrade everything we could do for this person that was helping us in the house. And we found it was very interesting what we found out. Everything that they said in South Africa, from South Africa into the United States, was the opposite of the truth. When we came back to the States, there was nothing but lies. Everybody believed lies, but we lived with these people who were not the way it was being described. It was totally reversed.
What do you mean?
Well, that they were all unhappy, that they were being suppressed, that they were, because they had...
Oh, the servants.
Yes. This servant that was part of the house, she belonged to the house. Because when we rented the house, she came with the house.
Right,
Uh-huh.
right.
And we brought her new things for her quarters, and we gave her extra money, and we did all kinds of things to try to make her life more pleasant. It was just a normal thing for us. And the South Africans there said, you're making a mistake. Our clients and our staff were saying, you should not be doing this. Why? Because they're going to lose respect for you. You'll see it. You're being stupid. You're doing something stupid. You should not do this. But we didn't listen to them, and we just continued to do everything we could. And then she started taking off from work and not showing up and not, just leaving whenever she felt like it. And she lost respect. It's true. She lost respect for her job and for us because it's all she knew. See?
Right.
But all these people that we met that had servants and people, they were being trained and educated in colleges with degrees in being doctors, being dentists, being lawyers. They were being taught everything they could possibly be taught so that they could interact with everybody else and not be in apartheid anymore. And they were planning to do away with that as soon as they got enough people that they could work with in the government and in the society and in business. It was just, it was like a plan that they had. And what happened was that the outside world, people from outside, cut that and said, you can't do this anymore. This is terrible. You're doing bad things to these people, and you're suppressing them, and you've made them into slaves. And they were trying to go in the opposite direction. Anyway, I saw all this firsthand. So nobody's ever going to tell me ever that something else was going on there, because it wasn't. It was outside that country that the trouble was. And they carved out about 3 different countries in South Africa and separated them out and said, if you don't want to be in South Africa, you don't have to be. You can have your own country. And they said, go there. We won't bother you. You can have your life. You can do what you want. Anybody that wants to do that can go to these countries. This all happened while we were there. And they went, and then there was, they wanted to, there were some outside from other places, people coming in with guns and weapons and trying to attack South Africa. And the South African government didn't know exactly, well, they were trying to defend South Africa, of course. And then some of these countries that they established, their leaders came to Joe, wherever they came, and they said, would you train us how to grow crops the way you grow crops? Because we don't know how to do that. And they said, yes, we'd be happy to teach you farming. We will be happy to teach you how to grow your crops in exchange for keeping those attackers out of South Africa. Just keep them away. Don't let them in from your country, because they were coming in through those countries. And they said, okay, yeah, well, we'll do that. So they went back to their mall And then they got their education in agriculture. Experience for me.
How long were you and Frankie in South Africa?
About 3.5 months.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. And then we came back.
So you were delivering auditing to the public down there as part of the advanceability
They
sign?
had an exodus from the Church of Scientology.
Right.
Tons of people, and the church had missions down there to try to stop us and break into our house and steal our materials and stuff. And we called the flying squad. And the flying squad takes exactly 4 minutes to arrive at your house when you call them. And 4 minutes later, they came and they didn't find anybody there because they figured it out that they were coming. And but they didn't get anything. They didn't get anything that they were looking for. Right. So, but they did try, and they even were extending their visa at the embassy, and we saw them at the embassy trying to get their visa extended because the 3 months were up for us, and we had to get extra time. So we were on the other line, and the mission from the church was on the other line next to us. we were waving to them and saying hi, but they wouldn't answer. They would not.
No, they wouldn't.
After that, we started the AAC, the Advanceability Center in South Africa, and we left them with the technology, and they were established, and we left. We went back to Santa Barbara, but David Mayo was mad at us because we were not allowed to take Krugerrands, or we weren't allowed to take rands out of South Africa. And we were the money. Yeah, there was no money.
Yeah,
they wouldn't let us leave with money. So we couldn't give David the money that he was expecting from all these people that we delivered services to. And he even sent down somebody to inspect that. And they said, they're right. They won't let them out. They will not let the money out of the country. But David was still not satisfied. He wasn't pleased. But we were.
Well, that same thing happened with the Scientology. They couldn't get their money out of South Africa for anyone who paid for services there.
Like for a flag or whatever, they couldn't do it. Yeah,
the flag or for Herbie for the Guardian's Office reserve account.
So they would set up their own bank accounts down there, right?
Yeah. Well, apparently David did not know about that rule because he was very upset that we were not able to get our money, and even sent somebody there to double check on us, and it was true.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the South Africa chapter.
Well, this is fascinating. All of it is. I'm really enjoying these stories. And I know we got a lot more to go as far as, carrying on after that and what you're doing nowadays and stuff. But we're going to carry on the next episode that we do with you, Mary. And we want to thank you for being here and talking about your time in Scientology and the AAC.
I really want to thank you both for what you're doing, because it's never been done before. I don't think that you guys.
No, it hasn't. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're putting together a timeline that is a historic record of everything that happened from the beginning all the way to present time, as much as you can get information now, but people who are leaving by people who lived it. It isn't history reported and misreported and PR and lies and withholds. It's the real deal from people who lived the history. So thank you for doing this.
And Mary, we're learning something. Like I was on the other side of the AAC and what was happening from the RTC point of view, because I worked in RTC during that time period, and I worked for Miscavige during that time period. So you're filling me in on what was going on in Santa Barbara in Africa. I had no idea about any of that. And I'm sure some of the stuff that Janis and I have told you had not heard that before, so it's kind of nice to be able to compare notes and get new information from different viewpoints,
Exactly. Yes. From the people who lived it. That's the best.
Right.
Yeah.
So thank you.
No problem. Well, it's that time, folks. It's Outback Naturals, complete liquid multivitamins, Janis's company. Ditch the pills, drink the power. Go to Vites.com or scan that QR code, or you can go down in the video description. There's a link to our merchandise store, and you can order a month's supply, and it's liquid vitamins. It's got all the daily vitamins that you need. Yeah, you just take 2 tablespoons or a shot glass, drink it down, and you've taken your vitamins for the day, and it's peach flavored. Once you've got it open, you refrigerate it, shake it up, and you're ready to go. But we've had quite a few orders from people trying it out, and Janis, they're enjoying it, aren't they?
Yeah, they are enjoying it. I'm getting good feedback on it, so I'm very happy with that.
Yeah. And anyway, we appreciate everybody's support. Support Janis's business, Outback Naturals, Vites.com. She's got other products on there as well, Complete Magnesium, Qualicom. What's the other one, Janis? The joint formula. All of those different things are on there. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yep, and plant source minerals, which is fulvic, humic acids.
That's right. Anyway, so go to our merchandise store, Vites.com, and ditch the pills, drink the power. The other thing is, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. Hit that like button, hit the notification button. It helps to get our videos out to other people who are interested in this subject. We appreciate the support from everybody who's already subscribed, but if you haven't, please do subscribe. Also, if you have any questions or comments about what we talked about here today, go down below. We get lots of comments from people. They're enjoying the shows with Mary. We want to hear from you, so please do leave any questions or comments. And then also, if you want to support our show, in the video description box, there's a link to Buy Me a Coffee where you can send us money as a donation, basically, to help support the channel and our expenses. So we appreciate any support that we get from our loyal viewers. That's the show for today. Have you guys got anything you want to say before we end off?
Thank you, Mary.
No? Yeah, thank you, Mary.
I've enjoyed your stories.
Yes.
I love hearing about Frankie. Frankie was a good friend.
Me too. He was a good guy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about him on the next episode as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, until next time, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.